for the World Food Day, focusing on how school meals can contribute to the United Nations Charter for the Right to Food and to the achievement of the Sustainable Development of Goals. And this is organized by the Swedish FAO Committee, the Swedish Food Agency, and SIANI. My name is Ingela Marklinder, and I'm going to moderate this seminar. A normal work day for me, I educate dietitian students and food science and nutrition students at the Department of Food Studies, Nutrition and Dietetics at Uppsala University. And I am happy to be here and to meet all of you and to moderate this seminar. And we are looking forward to an intensive morning, and it will start with 4 presentations and ends with a panel discussion. The panel discussion is after the coffee break. And in between, we have 2 Mentimeter assessments, and it is conducted by Jonna Wiklund at SIANI. And the time is limited, and therefore we must strictly follow the timetable. And I think we could help each other with that. And to the audience, I would also like to encourage you to create and collect your questions to all these experts that are around us today. And it can be posed directly to the panelists in the final panel discussion, but start planning for it now. And before we start with the opening remarks, please turn off your mobile phone, but you should also be ready with a mobile right now, because you have to answer the first question in the Mentimeter. And you have just 3 minutes to complete that. So please, Jonna.
Everyone, nice to see all of you here. My name is, as you said, Jonna, and I work for the Swedish International Agricultural Network Initiative, SIANI. So, in order to get into the topic of today, we wanted to start with more personal questions. So we wanted to ask you, what was your perception of school food when you were younger? And we hope to see here the many different dimensions that school food can have, both when it comes to taste, maybe to the importance when it comes to education, health, and social equity. So, yeah, taken for granted, the first one there. I hope we will get a word cloud. Good. I guess that's something that we can all agree on. Taken for granted is, I guess, something that we might see here in Sweden, but not globally, which I'm sure we will hear more of later. Pizza and cookies. Taste is important. Hearty, grateful. Could be more nutritious is also up there, so that's maybe also something that we will get to talk more about later. Yummy. Overall, very positive reactions we can see. Liver beef. I don't know, it doesn't say if that was good or bad. Yeah, but I think this is a nice way to... Awful is also there, so not only positive experiences. But I think this is a good way to sort of start starting with yourself and then, zooming out a little bit into a more broader perspective and a global perspective about the importance of food and especially school food. thank you so much. You're
Thank
welcome
you.
to continue entering, but...
And yes, this is we all have our own memories of the school food, and hopefully also positive. So, would you like to comment anything, or do you have any questions around this? The Swedish Food Agency maybe want to give some. Is it not nutritious?
I suppose we also have different generations here, so I guess there's also, of course, been... Yes.
Please.
Well, as a Swede and working with school food globally, I'm always very proud to represent Sweden, the best in class. But I'm a bit sad that Swedes don't usually understand that, how good it is. I've been telling my children all through their childhood not to complain. But we tend to complain when we really shouldn't.
Thank you. Very. This is true.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Then thank you so much, Jonna.
And there will be more
back.
Menti
Yes.
exercises later, but now you
Later
have
on.
practiced the skills. Thank you.
And now we will start with the opening remarks by Dan Eriksson, the State Secretary and Chair of the Swedish FAO Committee, the Ministry of Rural Affairs and Infrastructure. So please welcome, the floor is yours.
Can I stand here? Thank you so much for that, and good morning, everyone, here in the room and online. As you said, my name is Dan Eriksson, State Secretary for Rural Affairs and Chair of the Swedish FAO Committee. And that's one of the most important things I'm doing, because I'm a little exciting working with things that belongs to people all over the world. And I saw here that some said that you take this school meal for granted. Yes, we can do that in some countries, but in many countries they can't. And that's our mission, to help all countries to have the possibility to give a good school meal. Allow me first to extend a warm welcome to you all on behalf of the committee, and especially to all the speakers and panelists. Your participation is very much appreciated. We are organizing this seminar to commemorate World Food Day, which was on Wednesday, in light of this year's theme, Right to Foods for a Better Life and a Better Future. The committee has elected to highlight school meals. With the continued high levels of food insecurity globally, and the reports from not least FAO and World Food Programme showing that the world is not on track towards reaching zero hunger by 2030. School meal is a very pertinent issue and an important piece of the puzzle. In addition to food security, school meal programs can promote agriculture, create jobs, increase school attendance and learning, and improve health. Today, overall, approximately 41% of children enrolled in primary school have access to a free or subsidized daily school meal, rising to 61% in high-income countries, and almost half of school children get free meals. Sweden has been involved in the School Meals Coalition since it was formed in connection to the 2021 UN Food System Summit. and the coalition is an important tool for multilateral action and contributes not only to the global goal Zero Hunger, but several of the Sustainable Development Goals. We value the coalition as an important forum to share and exchange experiences for driving action towards ensuring that every child can receive a healthy, nutritious meal in school by 2030. When it comes to Sweden, we have a long tradition of serving cost-free meals in school, over 70 years. As such, we have plenty of experiences to share, but also know that there is always room for further development. Our National Food Agency has a special competence center for public meals that plays an important role in this work. For example, they have developed a meal model that includes 6 aspects of quality. The food should be safe and nutritious, tasty, and served in a pleasant environment. The meal should also be eco-smart and contribute to environmentally sustainable development. To fully use the meal's potential, it should be integrated into the core activities and be a natural part of the education. And this model is also implemented in the national guidelines for meals in schools and preschools. However, we still have several challenges to tackle. For example, school meals are not yet part of the school's education and is not used as the tool it has the potential to be for learning about healthy and sustainable diets, agriculture, and local food production. I hope that today's seminar will provide plenty of food for thought with regards to both challenges and ways forward, and that it will contribute to strengthen discussions and support for school meal programs. So I wish you all an interesting seminar. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And actually, we have a few minutes left if you have any questions. Yeah. Then thank you so much for an interesting opening. And now we should move over to Nancy Aborto, who is the Deputy Director at the Food and Nutrition Division at FAO. And very welcome to give the presentation, Right to Food for a Better Life and Future. And this is going to be a little longer presentation. So, welcome.
Get myself situated up here. Okay, thank you. Excellent. Good morning, everyone. Distinguished guests, colleagues, friends in the back even here in Stockholm. It's wonderful, new friends as well up here in the front. I'm thrilled to be here this morning to be able to celebrate Swedish World Food Day with you. And there are a number of reasons that I'm thrilled. One is it's my first visit to Stockholm, so I get to see a beautiful city that I've never seen before. So thank you so much to the organizers for inviting me. But also, I have the opportunity to talk about what I think is the most exciting topic related to sustainable development, and that is nutrition. As was said, my name is Nancy Aborto, and I come from the Nutrition Division at the Food and Agriculture Organization, so maybe it's not too surprising that I think nutrition is exciting. But in the context of this year's World Food Day, why are we able to really highlight nutrition? Well, this year's theme, as has already been mentioned, is the right to foods for a better life and a better future. And in English, that sounds a little awkward because we usually talk about the right to food. But this year's theme very purposely uses the plural, foods, because it really wants to highlight that we need to enable access for all to diverse, nutritious, and safe foods, because that's what's needed for healthy diets, and healthy diets are the backbone of good nutrition. So we're back to talking about nutrition. Another reason that I'm pleased to be here is because I get the opportunity to share with you that this year's World Food Day is the launch of a celebration at FAO called the 80-1 celebration. And this is a countdown event as we prepare for FAO's 80th birthday, which will happen next year at the next World Food Day in 2025. But over the course of the next year, there'll be lots of events and lots of opportunities for us to continue this conversation around the right to foods, around nutrition, around school meals. And so I really just want you to hold this space and look out for those opportunities so we together can prepare to celebrate for next year's World Food Day with a big bang for our 80th anniversary. So I'm going to come back to a discussion about right to food, right to foods, and then what that has to do with school meals. But before I do so, I want to take about 30 seconds to share a video that should have volume.
It's a universal principle of life, a fundamental human right. Everyone should have access to enough, nutritious, diverse, affordable, and safe foods. It starts with nature, a journey from our farms to our tables, where we come together to celebrate our cultural identities. World Food Day. Food is a right, every day, for everyone, everywhere.
Thank you. Thank you so much to the technicians for making that work. We were a little bit nervous about that. But I really like that video because in just a few short moments, it really captures this integration between land, plants, animals, and us as humans, because we all have the right to foods. And it also captures this idea of nutritious, diverse, and safe foods. So in just a few short moments, we're capturing really big picture items. And of course, it's also very beautiful. However, I want to note that we haven't always thought this way. We haven't always thought of the right to foods in this broad way that would elevate nutrition in a natural way or elevate school meals, which we'll dive into in a few minutes. There's been a process of collective thinking over the last several decades when it comes to the right to food. There are a couple of milestones that are worth mentioning. Back in 1966, the right to food was safeguarded in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and in the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, Article 11. And this is a legally binding covenant for many, if not most, countries around the world. So really a milestone for us to consider. There was also a General Comment 12, which came out about that covenant in 1999, which really clarified that states have a responsibility to help support the realization of right to food of its citizens, another important milestone in history. And then back in 2004, the Committee on World Food Security adopted voluntary guidelines on the progressive realization of the right to food. And this is another reason for us to be celebrating this year, because this year is the 20th anniversary of that document. And we continue at the global level to build on that document with other sets of voluntary guidelines to help support being able to actually actualize what's integrated in that document of the right to adequate foods. And the fundamentals of the right to food are founded in dignity for all, meaning that all of those nutritious, diverse, and safe foods for everyone, everywhere, and at all times come with dignity, and not as an act of charity, but rather as an entitlement that respects every person's self-worth. Therefore, the right to food really addresses inequalities, and it really focuses on ensuring that those traditionally marginalized or vulnerable populations and people are not left behind. So the right to food is fundamental for us to realize this sustainable development goal rhetoric of leave no one behind. The right to food really makes that a principal priority. So bringing us back to foods within this conversation, by taking a human rights-based approach, and that is utilizing the Panther principles, the principles of participation, accountability, non-discrimination, transparency, human dignity, empowerment, and the rule of law, we can see that good nutrition becomes a fundamental goal of the right to food. Because good nutrition is necessary for a healthy and fulfilling life. Therefore, again, enabling all of those diverse, nutritious, and safe foods just becomes part and parcel of what we're talking about when we're talking about food, and we're talking about the right to food. And those voluntary guidelines on the progressive realization of the right to food include clear and comprehensive framework for governments to set out policy and program that can support achieving this goal with that integration of nutrition within the right to food. Some specifics related to consumers, so us as consumers of food, school children as consumers of food, are things like enabling food safety, being truthful in labeling. That means ensuring that there's not misleading or fraudulent information. And then finally, consumer empowerment. And this is really important because consumer empowerment shows that it's not only a state responsibility that the population has a right to food, but that we all have agency in our self-determination of the right to food. And that's a really, really important point. And it's an important point when it comes to school children because it's not just adults that deserve this empowerment and this agency. And in fact, probably all of the audience here will agree with me that perhaps the most important actor in this discussion, especially within the context of a brighter future, would be youth, children, adolescents, and young adults. And as children enter school, as they become those famous labeled school children, they're leaving home, they're growing more independent, but they're still growing. So there is a collective responsibility that we ensure that their rights are upheld, and that includes within schools. Because schools are a unique space for very obvious reasons for safeguarding children's rights. And the right to food is one of those rights. Because in order for children to realize other rights, like the right to education or the right to good health, they have to have the right to food realized. Because we need healthy diets, healthy and safe foods in order to realize our full potential. And children deserve that. So as we continue to think about how we safeguard children's food, we also need to recognize that when children enter school, they're also entering a time in their life where they're becoming more independent and autonomous. They're building an individuality apart from their family that allows them also to build their agency. So an FAO perspective in our support to members, when we talk about our support to school food and nutrition, we want to do so from a right to food foundation. A foundation that really shows how to safeguard children's right to food, but then also build their agency to self-protect their rights within their capabilities. And of course, a critical part of this is school meals. So now we've gone from the right to food to the right to foods to school children to school meals, which is really the core of today's discussion. School meals programs can, of course, make a substantial contribution to what children eat in the course of the day, and therefore children's realization of the right to food. However, this contribution is dependent on the adequacy of those meals. They need to fulfill the needs of the children that are consuming those meals, and that might differ in different contexts. Might be different in Stockholm than it is in Rome, where I live, or in Tanzania, or in Vietnam. It needs to be provided regularly and coherent within the broader school environment. Some environments, school children go to school for 4 hours a day. Other environments, they might go to school 8 hours a day. That's going to differ how a school contributes to the realization of right to food. But it also needs to consider the cultural context of the community. As I just listed out some countries and cities, we recognize that the traditional culinary habits of those different places around the world are very different, and that needs to be recognized within the school meal programming. So it's critical to engage a broad community when we're considering school meal programming. But we recognize that realistically, this type of broad thinking and programming is not always what's happening around the world. It's probably happening less often than not, even though here in Sweden, we've got something that we can build on because we've already heard about the successful school meal programs here in Sweden for sure. But school meal nutrition standards, like other international guidelines, could be an important instrument. And we at FAO are convinced that it's an important instrument that can support realizing the right to food, because it can ensure that all of those children in all of those different contexts are getting the same entitlement in terms of adequate meals, regardless of the context, regardless of the school environment. And basing these guidelines on a human rights approach means that we also go just beyond the food on the plate, and we think also about the meal experience. We think about socialization, we think about equity across the classroom and children, about environmental sustainability, and about food learning. And this very holistic approach, what we saw in the video, is about that interconnectedness of planet and people. And this holistic approach also practices the fundamentals of dignity for children and their families and their communities, because it honors their context, it honors their culture, and it honors their self-worth. So school meal guidelines and standards can be an important instrument to make this happen, but they're actually not common. And in 2020, FAO, partnering with the World Food Program, and I'm very glad that colleagues from World Food Program are here and we can talk more about our strong partnership. And with the financial report from the German government, we set out to catalyze a change to make a difference in terms of what's available for guidelines and standards for school meal nutrition. This is a project that's still underway, but the intended result will be a step-by-step methodology that countries can use. And they can derive and implement school meal nutrition guidelines and standards in their own context that are anchored in the right to food. Again, using that Panther approach, that participation, accountability, non-discrimination, transparency, human dignity, empowerment, and the rule of law. The resulting school meal nutrition standards will be feasible according to the possibilities of each individual food system. They're evidence-based always. They consider the broad food and cultural context, and importantly, they bridge the school meal programming, so the day-to-day programming in school meals, with that policy and legal framework environment, so that ultimately countries can embed these school meal nutrition guidelines and standards into their legislation, so that they can continue on into the future beyond any particular school year, beyond any particular political cycle or any funding cycle, and really be a fundamental pillar of what schools can do to support children's rights. So in conclusion, we can see this year's World Food Day celebration, the right to foods for a better life and a better future, is an excellent opportunity to talk about school meals, because school meals are a fundamental part of what it will take to realize the ambition of that slogan. And with that, I thank you.
Thank you so
Do you want me to
much.
take a question?
Yes, there might be some questions.
Okay.
Thank you so much. I think you really highlighted the importance of school meal, and it is also gave an optimism. I think that it could be well developed also in the world. And actually we have some extra minutes if there are questions to you from the audience.
Not yet.
Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. My name is Jennifer Barron. I'm a professor in agricultural water management at SIANI here. And thank you for this really nice
Okay, sorry. My name is Jenny Barron. I'm a professor at the Swedish University of Agriculture Sciences. And thank you so much for this. And I just wanted to say, or ask you, because you didn't mention the hunger stunting statistics, which is very, very often referred to in this kind of context, and that from some other talks recently, there has been more emphasis on the stunting process. And isn't this extra relevant talking about school meals? Because this is about people's ability to learn for life. Could you maybe comment a little bit on that, please?
Certainly. Thank you very much for the question. Stunting is an indicator of chronic undernutrition, chronic malnutrition. And generally, stunting is manifest in younger children before they enter schools. So it's the largest percentage, the portion of the burden of stunting is really in children under 2, but then also children under 5. So in focusing on the school meals, I wasn't focusing on that indicator per se. However, your remarks are extremely relevant because stunting in itself is also an indicator of a breakdown of systems. Because if we're talking about a lot of children who are young and already having their growth and their cognitive development stunted because they're not able to consistently access the foods that they need, then that's showing that food systems aren't functioning, health systems are likely not functioning optimally, and then that in turn is going to drive education systems not to be able to function optimally. So though the indicator of stunting is not so relevant for children within the school age, in the context of a community, the indicator of stunting is extremely important because it gives an indication of the fragility of systems, the same systems that the school-age children would be living in. So thank you for the question.
Thank you so much. Anybody else? Okay. So thank you.
Well, I'll be here at the coffee and afterwards. I'm very happy to have any one-on-one questions.
Sounds very good. And next speaker. Next speaker is going to be online, and we will move over to Zoom, and there is a presentation by Maria José Rojas, who is a Deputy Director of the School Meals Coalition Secretariat and hosted by World Food Programme. And are you there, Maria José Rojas?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes, very nice meeting you. And we are looking forward to your presentation, Reimagination, School Meals for Planetary Child Health. So,
thank you.
If you are
ready.
Thank you very
much. Thank you for having me. And especially, I know it's not ideal. I would have loved to be there, actually in person, but unfortunately, because of the celebrations around the World Food Day, I was not able to travel. But I'm really happy you made the space for this topic. I'm also very happy to speak after Nancy. She is a super advocate for school meals. She explained it very well. And I'm really thrilled about the partnership we actually have with FAO. And I would like to just walk you through a presentation we have prepared to you to explain you how all of the conversations that you have had so far and you will be having this later on are actually being absorbed and reflected by the coalition that is called the School Meals Coalition that has been established in 2021 at the margins of the Food System Summit. And that is, it has been desired, wanted, strongly wanted by the governments and countries that felt that school meals were actually a platform and a type of service that goes well beyond the plate of food and the delivery of food for children. So let me just give you a little bit of the story here. Can we go next? The School Meals Coalition in July, when we start work, July 2021, when we start working on it, we had 30 members. Then we came at its official launch with 50 members. We are today with 103 member states, and we're talking about presidential and ministerial level of representation, which means that the leadership of these countries are really walking the talk, and they're really leading the efforts of this coalition. Also, just for you to flag in terms, I'm sure you know, but out of these 103 countries, we have a committee that is called the Task Force. Those are 12 countries that are led by France, Finland, and Brazil, and includes also Sweden as part of the decision-making body of this coalition. And that is really, really important for us. You've been able to mobilize together with Finland, indeed, the Nordic community. That for us is extremely relevant in terms for the experience that, for instance, Finland has, but also for the type of work that your countries have. The coalition itself, so these are the countries that are actually leading and that are responsible to achieve the objectives of the coalition, but it is supported by 134 partners. Can we go to the next slide? And there we try to reflect, and this is getting ever more complicated to reflect actually all of the logos of all of the partners, I might say. But it's really interesting to see how from different sectors, from different constituencies, we have partners supporting governments in achieving those objectives that they have, including indeed FAO, as I was mentioning just before. But let's go to the next slide to better understand what are the objectives of the coalition. It was established and because, and let's say as a result of COVID, because COVID hit and all governments from northern and southern countries realized how important these programs are. And they also realized that they actually act as platforms, even more than schools. So they are places where, for example, in instances like COVID, they serve as hubs for the distribution of the food to secure that the families and the children kept receiving the food during those periods of closure. There was a service of take-home rushes. There's different type of services that come up, but the governments realized that independently from where they were, so being northern countries or southern countries, these programs were most needed. So they decided to move ahead and identify 3 key objectives. The first one was to restore all of the children that were left out for school meals because schools were closed. And we had there 388 million children were left out. And so they said we need to work to guarantee that they go back to school and that they keep receiving school meals program. Today, this objective has been achieved by the coalition. We have even more children than before. So today we have 418 million children back to school benefiting from school meals program. The second one, and it remains clearly important and relevant, is to reach those children that are the most behind, basically. So those that are located in emergency contexts mainly. They were not reached before COVID, and they still need to be reached today. And the third objective is also a very interesting and very complex objective because it speaks to the quality of the programs, but in a very holistic way. So we're talking about the ability of ensuring nutritious school meals program to ensure that government have the legal frameworks in place, that they have the right policies in place, that the quality of the programs are in place, that the supply chains are correctly in place. So we're trying all of the sharing, the experience, the learning. This objective is the one that includes, let's say, the most interconnected type of relations that are needed and infrastructures that are needed to make it work. Next. So in the margins of this conversation, and we can go also to the next slide, what we have learned and what we know is that also trying to see how the school meals program are actually contributing to the global agenda and the conversations. We were saying that they do not contribute only to SDG 2, but that is focusing on hunger clearly. But we realize because of the multisectoral impact and approach, they have impact in several targets identified across different SDGs. So we're talking about poverty, we're talking of course about the well-being, health, education, gender equality, the growth, reduce the inequality, partnerships of course, because without partners it's impossible to make all of this work. And I am sure that if we dig deeper, we will be able even to find connections with many other SDGs. But let's say we try to identify those for which we actually can provide data, we can actually prove how it's really important to get these school meals programs prioritized in the agendas of the government, even at the higher level. And that's why, I'm going to be very honest, one of the reasons why this coalition has succeeded is because definitely is driven by governments, but at the highest level. So there's a lot, we are observing that there are a lot of conversations across the ministries, indeed triggered by the presidents themselves. And this is very important because it's a kind of a coalition that is breaking silos. The membership comes from different ministries. So just to give you an example, we don't have only ministries of education signing up for this, but we do also have from development, from finance, from infrastructure, from in Sweden case, it's business, industry and innovation ministry, the one that joined representing Sweden in this conversation. But that gives you the flavor and the understanding on how the conversation is happening at different type of level. And this is due because also the impact that these programs have is in different sets. So when we're talking about education, for instance, we know that all of the schools that are providing school meals program have an higher level of enrollment from schools that do not provide that service. We have also seen that enrollment has actually go up from, up to a 9%. When it comes, for instance, for gender and health, we know that the provision of the school meals program is reducing anemia by a 20%. So we also know that this type of programs in margins of conflict or instability, they act as very, as Nancy was actually saying as well, they act as very strong safety net platforms. And they definitely ensure that they receive nutritious food. So it's not just a drop of food without the real quality elements that they need in their growth, basically. So this is just to show you, and I could give you even more examples. We do have a publication that refer to all of these figures. I actually want to give you another one just to give you a sense of this. Since the establishment of the coalition, we know that governments, so finance, have been inverting more than $5 billion since the establishment. So we're talking since 2020 till 2022, we have shown that the global, worldwide, the investments on these programs went from $43 billion to $48 billion. We've also seen that there has been a job creation that has raised to 4 million jobs, mainly for women. So there are so many impactful and data evidence that prove that these programs go well beyond. That is really interesting to see and to explore the opportunity to tackle these things from different angles. Can we go next?
Sorry to interrupt you. We have this has been very interesting, and I just wanted to tell you that we have a few minutes left in our time in the schedule.
That's perfectly fine. I'm ready to close it here if it's fine for you.
Yeah,
We had only a last slide, that is next one, that I think it's relevant for you in terms of interest of what actually the Nordic countries are contributing. But with that, the presentation is over. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your valuable contribution. The thing is that we actually have extra time because the coffee has been postponed to 10:30, so we have some time for a question also. And I have a question. Do you think that you will achieve this goal the year 2030? Are you optimistic or pessimistic?
I'm definitely optimistic. I am definitely optimistic. I will be super honest. When we started thinking about the coalition and the member states asked WFP to act as the secretariat of the coalition, when we thought about success, we were saying, okay, if we get 15 countries at ministerial presidential level that join the coalition, that's success. We are at 103 countries. So that means that there is so much interest, so much traction, so much ownership. Also, when I look at the partners that are joining, it's like every month we have new partners joining, every month we have new countries joining. And when you see the commitment they are putting out there, that we have governments that are really investing and increasing their domestic financial resources in these programs, is when you feel that this coalition is going to achieve the objectives that they have. One is already there. There is the tricky one on the humanitarian side. That will require a lot of efforts also from the donors community, because it's a very complex one. But when we go to the third objective, I can tell you the progress that has been made in terms of what is needed and identify what are the tools that are needed there to make it happen. I feel very comfortable that we are going into the right direction. There is a lot to do, a lot. And we still need to see the engagement at these levels and commitments from countries at these levels.
Thank you so much. I think this is very important. We have a question also. Please.
Thank you. My name is Katarina Eriksson. I represent Tetra Pak. Thank you very much for this presentation. It's truly impressive what the coalition has managed to do in these few years. I represent the private sector, so of course, a natural question is, will there be an opportunity for the private sector to participate in this in one way or the other? I know that there has been discussions about this, guidelines being prepared. Any news on this? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, as you know very well, we as the Secretariat of the Coalition definitely feel very strongly the need of the private sector as a constituency to join and be part of this coalition. As you were saying, yes, the membership of it, so government levels, they are trying to define and agree on what would be like a general framework for, to allow the private sector to join. For those that are not part of this discussion, is just to say that there are sometimes blurry lines in terms on the food space, on how we can collaborate with the private sector, because there are some companies, especially food companies, are the ones that are representing a little bit more of challenges when it comes to a coalition such as this one. I know the membership, the decision-making body of the coalition is having their conversations. We hope that in 2025 we will be able to welcome the private sector, but definitely it's a space that even at country level can definitely engage with government and see how their contributions that go well beyond, again, the typical donor side of the things. We're talking now actually about a type of partnership that speaks to the ability of support on distribution, on infrastructure, on intelligence, on IA, on digital, on all of the aspects that are actually even referring to the learning, the training, the experience. There's a lot that the private sector can contribute. So as you, I'm really hopeful that this will happen soon.
That's what I would say, that we should give you one extra applaud, because I think you have given us some hope for the future. Really interesting. This was really good.
We would get there. We would get there.
So, thank you so much, and we have to continue with next presentation. Thank you so much, Maria.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And all the best. And in this relay race, we will end. It's not before the coffee break, and then please, Emily Elin from the Swedish Food Agency. The last but not the least presentation, the National School Meal Program in Sweden in the past, taking step into the future.
Thank you, Mrs. Marklinder, and good day to you all. Thank you for the opportunity to share our experiences of the Swedish school meals. My name is Emily Elin, and I'm working at the Center of Competence for Public Meals at the Swedish Food Agency. We support municipalities and regions to improve the quality of meals in schools, healthcare services, and elderly care homes. The Swedish Food Agency has a wide range of responsibilities relating to food, including developing the Swedish dietary guidelines and working towards a sustainable and healthy food consumption in the population. Sweden has a comprehensive and service-oriented welfare system in order for all citizens to have the same opportunities for good and equal health. Meals served in schools and preschools are considered a core part of that task. Each municipality in Sweden, a total of 290, is in charge of the meals in schools and preschools within their remit. And some facts about Swedish school meals. Close to 2 million children eat tax-funded meals every day. School meals cost around 7,200 Swedish crowns per student and per year, which equals around 630 euro. School lunches are provided to all students ages 6 to 16 in compulsory schooling and to most students ages 16 to 19 and in preschools age 1 to 5 days a week. And we see that when children consume school meals prepared according to the national guidelines, these meals contribute to health, to well-being, and to sustainable development. And some history. Free school lunches were introduced in Sweden in the 1940s, motivated mainly by nutritional concerns. It was already then well known that well-fed children perform better. When the Swedish Parliament in 1945 decided that the schools would receive financial support, it laid the foundation of today's school meal system. In the 1970s, the system became national, and since 1997, all municipalities in Sweden are obliged to serve free school meals to all students in primary schools, according to the Education Act. And in 2011, nutrition was added to the law. But we know that many factors are important for sustainable and tasty school meals. Therefore, national guidelines for meals in schools and preschools were published, in which the meal model was developed from the need of looking at the meal from a holistic perspective. And as State Secretary Mr. Eriksson earlier mentioned, the meal model is well established in Sweden and works as a support for decision and policymakers and meal planners to develop meals from a more holistic perspective. The Swedish school meals have received a boost over the past 15-20 years, and with many municipal efforts to raise the quality of the food served. School meals are of higher quality. More meals are made from scratch and meet nutritional recommendation. On top of that, school meals contribute to environmental goals like minimize climate impact and food waste. And the challenges today are different than when the National School Meal Program first was introduced. It's not the nutrition or the food on the plate that is the problem. It's the children to recognize and accept nutritious food that sometimes is a bit different from what some children are used to from home. Food and nutrition education is not established in Swedish education, and there is a great potential to use school meals to learn about, to learn from, and to learn through food to increase students' knowledge about sustainable and healthy food consumption and production. Anxiety and insecurity in the school restaurant can cause students to skip school lunch, and surveys show that school restaurant is one of the school's most unsafe places. And despite the School Act's requirements for free and nutritious school meals, they are quite unregulated and follow-up is often lacking. Challenges linked to who has responsibility and lack of collaboration slows further development down. And just a little about the Swedish Food Agency's support to develop or the development of school meals. A well-used policy document in Sweden is our national guidelines for meals in school and preschool. Over 80% of the Sweden's municipalities have their own meal policies based on the national guidelines. At the moment, we're working intensively on updating these guidelines to publish them during 2025. The guidelines are based on the new Nordic nutrition recommendations and the Swedish dietary guidelines. Also, we've developed goals and indicators to more easily follow up on sustainable meals, and they will be included in the updated guidelines. Because of the identified challenges, we've been trying to develop support in these areas. And when we looked at new research on how meals can contribute to learning, to healthier eating habits, and how to organize a good meal environment, we've seen that children from socioeconomically weak groups run a greater risk of health issues caused by eating habits. And regardless of socioeconomic status, the school lunch is the meal that contributes the most nutrition of all meals during the day. At the school lunch, children eat more vegetables, more fish, and less unhealthy food at home or in other places. And because it is free of charge, it reaches all children and reduces differences in health between socioeconomic groups. A longitudinal study showed that people who had received free school meals throughout their entire primary school had higher lifetime income, increased number of years in schools, as well as university attendance. And other research has shown that in order for the school meals to contribute to a safe and socially meaningful learning environment, clear regulation in policy documents is required, as well as letting the students become involved in the decisions around the meals, such as the design of the meal environment and safety and social aspects of the mealtime. So I'm about to sum this up. We've seen that some factors are necessary for developing good and sustainable school meals in Sweden. Sweden has a long history of school meals as a contribution to health and nutrition among children. But there is still challenges that remain to be solved, such as cooperation and allocation of responsibility, as well as follow-up. We see that a cross-professional mission around school meals, and that the meals are part of the school's quality control system, for example, is needed for the meals to further contribute to learning and to school development. But overall, we're very proud and grateful for our school meal in Sweden. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much for a very interesting Swedish perspective. And you also terminated just in time before coffee. Is there any urgent question right now? We could take it, please.
Thank you very much. Very interesting. My name is Cecilia Norden van Gansberg. I'm president of the SIANI steering group. And I'm really glad that in all presentations, it's clear that much has happened since my time of eating in school. However, I was a bit concerned about you talking about students not eating the meals. Do you have any number? How many do not take advantage of this? And also, what was the unsafe meal environment? What does it mean? Do they fight or what? Thank you.
Yes, some fight, unfortunately. There's a little different numbers of children not going to the school restaurant. And of course, when older students that can choose to go to another grocery store or pizza place or something, some students tend to do that, and we've seen that like 1 in 5 of the older students choose to sometimes go to another place, and that's because the meal environment is not what the students choose, because it's sometimes very loud, it's very noisy, it's very small locations, and many students needs to go there like between 2 hours in the middle of the day. So many factors tend to lead to that many children don't feel safe and in the meal environment.
Thank you so much. Please.
Thank you. My name is Gloria Jumwaga. I work with Africa Groupina as a policy advisor for food and land rights. Thank you very much for your presentation. I really liked that you also tapped into the challenges that comes with providing school meals, and also talks about the mental aspect when it comes to children. My question is more, you talked about one of the challenges which I think is really interesting in terms of the knowledge integration when it comes to food aspect in Sweden. Many people, not just children, but also grown-ups, do not really know where the food comes from. Hence, it becomes very hard to actually take the relevance of it. And also that also contributes a lot when it comes to reducing food waste, consumer choices, but also the policies that we decide even in the future generation. So my question was that what are the steps do you think that you are taking currently, or think would be one of the way to actually ensure that there is an integration of knowledge, especially in making sustainable choices when it comes to food? I really like to hear from you.
Thank you for your questions. Like I mentioned, nutrition and meal education is not a part of the education in Sweden today, and it's up to teachers and principals to choose whether you use the school meals as a part in the education. But we see that many teachers and principals don't have the structure or the knowledge to actually use the school meals, and it's a waste because it's a daily learning opportunity, and you can link so much to school meals, like every topics in schools and in every ages. So we right now we're working with the Agency of Education to develop a support to principals to for them to easier integrate the school meals in the education.
Thank you so much. Very
thank you.
Good answer, reply. And now we have this is in a half time, and we have earned some coffee. It will be served outside at the same floor as we are, and but the time for coffee has been reduced, so the plan A is to start with a panel and the Mentimeter 11:15, but I think maybe we could postpone it so you at least could have 50 minutes coffee break. So be happy to have coffee and be prepared for the Mentimeter right after the coffee. Jonna will one more time conduct the Mentimeter, and now you will have double the time for answering this question and pose question on it.
Yeah, that's good. Let's see if we can get it up here. But basically, we wanted to give you the opportunity. We have a lot of prominent people and organizations represented here today. So we wanted to give you the opportunity to give your input on how Sweden best can contribute to ensuring the right to food internationally. Also for those joining us online that can't grab people outside of the room, this is your chance to give your ideas and inputs. And yeah, you go to menti.com and use the code 13720672. So same code as before. Already a couple of responses coming in. It's good that we have some more time because this question is maybe a bit more challenging. Take a more prominent role in the School Meals Coalition. Okay, that's a very hands-on idea. Collaboration between sectors is of course also always important. We've also heard that here, we're talking about the coalition. Support smallholder farmers and local value chain development. Share best practice and inspire others. More support to school meal programs. Ensure development funding is allocated to impactful organizations and initiatives. Also, of course, very important and interesting. Humanitarian assistance, high level of commitment, more multi-sector collaboration is there again. Also more about sharing best practices and learning from other countries, which I think is very important. Of course, we in Sweden also have a lot to learn from how things are done in other places. This is a really good list of ideas that for you, Alexander. Thank you very much for that. I mean, the Menti will be open a bit longer, so you can still also continue to fill it in. But I will hand over the word back to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your input.
I think this is a very good start for further discussion, and all these enthusiastic ideas. And we will also continue with our program and welcome the panel members. And the panel group consists of Helena Nordlund from Matlust, and I could, before you start, I will also present Ulrika Backlund from the World Wide Fund. And Katarina Eriksson from Tetra Pak. And Marie Duling from the World Food Programme. So now we will listen to your presentations one after another, and it takes about 5 minutes. And after that, the panel discussion will start. And don't forget to create your questions. You can also start now, and we will have it in the discussion. Jonna? Yes, could also pose questions. Yes.
In the Mentimeter, online participants can put their questions in.
Yes. And this is handled by Jonna. So, very much welcome.
Thank you. Okay, my name is Helena Nordlund and I'm working in Södertälje municipality, around 30-40 kilometers south of Stockholm. And nowadays I'm a senior advisor, but I have been a project leader for food-related projects for 13 years in Södertälje municipality, working in or in close cooperation with the diet unit that is in charge of all the public meals in Södertälje municipality. And we have around 90 kitchens from kindergarten, schools, secondary schools and elderly care homes. And in Södertälje, we use a research-based food concept called Diet for a Green Planet. Since around 2010, it has been implemented. And it was developed in a Baltic Sea region project that aimed to find out how agriculture must function to not pollute the Baltic Sea, to not contribute to climate change, while strengthening also biodiversity and fertility of the farmland. And such an agriculture method, what products will we get from that? What production will we have? And what food would that give us? So the concept was worked out from a systemic perspective to look at agriculture and then the whole food chain to see what we would get on the plate. And we have also run a lot of several transfer projects to share the project, both in Europe, but also it has been tested in some places outside of Europe. Ska vi se. And it's 5 core criteria for this concept. And these are thumb rules to make you creative. It's nothing one is doing in one day. You start where it's easiest in your context. But the 5 criteria are, first of all, that it must be attractive to humans, tasty and healthy. The second one is the production criteria, preferably organic and preferably from ecological regenerative agriculture, which means agriculture that works with balances, that you get certain ecological balances in each farm unit. And then the third is the menu concept. How do you compose your menus? Less animal products, more vegetables, more legumes and whole grains. And the fourth one is the geographic criteria. Locally produced and seasonal food, which will make very different food on the plate in different places. Depends on where and when you will have the meal. And the last one is reduced waste, which is the resource criteria. Take care of everything. Take care of underutilized raw materials, side streams, and try to have no waste. And that is often the easiest one to start with when we talk about the rich countries. And the third one, we talk about less animal products. That depends also on where you are. This is the one for rich countries, but maybe in some countries that would not be the right way. You really have to. This functions all over the world, and it's very creative, and you have to adapt it to the context you are in, and it will be very different food on the plate depending on where and when. And maybe my time is out, so I will just say we have a website, both in Swedish and English, and there you can find a lot more information about this concept. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we continue with Ulrika Backlund. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor, and this is such a great event. My name is Ulrika Backlund, and I work for WWF Sweden. So I want to start off by giving you a bit of context, so why WWF works with food, and why we actually work with focusing on school meals and supporting developing sustainable school meals. So WWF, one of the largest environmental organizations globally. We have projects and offices in over 100 countries. We also have a vision, a bold and ambitious vision. WWF wants or strives for a future where people live in harmony with nature. But to be able to do that, we need to focus on three things. First, we need to stop the extinction of species going on. It's actually a really critical situation we're in right now. We also need to stop the loss of natural habitats for these species. And the third, and maybe third, last but not least thing we need to do is half the footprint. So drastically reducing the footprint, the climate impact from humans, from our production and consumption. So how does this connect with food? Well, food is actually one of the biggest drivers for the loss of natural habitats, and thus also really connected to the extinction of species. But we also know that global food production and consumption is one of the biggest impacts on our human footprint. So about 25 to 30% of our climate impact actually comes from our consumption and production from food. But why? So that's the logic behind why we work with sustainable food systems and sustainable food. So why focus on school meals? Well, I want to start off by saying as an NGO, WWF is one of the partner organizations for the school meals, because we really believe and we see, just as previous speakers have said and shown, that school meals do more than just provide food on a plate. I would actually argue, but I also saw it in the Swedish Food Agency presentation before, that it does contribute to a lot of different SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. And so besides just reinforcing what previous speakers have already stated, I want to stress the importance that we think that school food or school meals can actually have for food literacy and different kinds of authentic learning situations. So practical learning about where food comes from, but also other subjects in schools. And it can really contribute to learning outcomes such as education for sustainable development. We also think it's really connected, of course, to environmental aspects such as climate impact, biodiversity, etc. And I really want to stress that we think it's really connected to the SDG 12, responsible consumption and production as well. And that's why 3 years ago, we entered into a project called School Food for Change. And this is a major European-funded project going on right now, so between the years 2022 and 2025, where we are one of 43 partners around Europe. So this is a EU-funded project involving 12 different countries, 43 partners. We aim, and we're really close to actually reaching 3,000 schools, and through them 600,000 pupils. What we do is that we aim at shifting our school meals and our schools into a new paradigm addressing public health and planetary health, social and environmental sustainability at the same time. So this is shifting from just looking at nutrition in specific countries into actually including the environmental sustainability, because we think that human and planetary health really go hand in hand. To do this, the project has a triple impact approach, as we call it. So we're trying to look holistically at different aspects, really implementing or impacting school meals. And we do this through looking at new innovative ways of doing sustainable food procurement. We also focus a lot on what's going on in the kitchens, in the school canteens. So how can we support and actually strengthen cooks, school chefs in their job? And how do we strengthen them in connecting with pupils and children in actually liking the tasteful, sustainable food? We also, one of the most important things, I think, is trying to implement a whole school food approach. So not just having the learning outcomes being a part of the pedagogical mission, but also involving the greater community around the school. So having communications and involving both parents, caregivers, and the wider community around. So the mission to make school meals enjoyable and healthy for both our children and our planet. Yeah, I hope to be able to say some more insightful things about this in the upcoming panel discussion, but I think this is really one of the biggest things that this project is giving, is sharing experiences and best practices between Sweden and other European countries in this case. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This was really interesting. And we continue with Katarina Eriksson, Tetra Pak. Please.
Hur växlar jag bild? Är det på pilen där bara, eller?
Ja, det är nog pilen. Ja.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Katarina Eriksson. I represent Tetra Pak Food for Development. And I will try to, in these few minutes, to focus on the more practical side of what we do in this field, using the questions why, how, and what. But I think the why we have talked a lot about already, so I will try to give a few remarks on the how and what from our perspective. Quickly, so the Food for Development team, which I'm part of, we've been around for about 25 years when I joined the company. And we are now a team of 9 people, and we work, of course, with a network of colleagues around the world to provide technical assistance, share experiences and best practices, and develop partnerships in support of school meals or other food aid or nutrition programs. We also work upstream with smallholder milk production linked to our customers' operations, and also with product development, in this case meaning, if not milk, it could be another nutritious beverage for a feeding program, and we have production development centers in the company that can help develop these products together with partners. We are a private company, we are a commercial company, and obviously this is business for us, but it's quite a sizable activity, and that probably justifies the fact that we are 9 people working with this. So since 1962, Tetra Pak's cartons have been used for school feeding programs around the world. The first country was Mexico, and we try to measure this every year, and last year we had 64 million children in 49 countries receiving milk or another nutritious beverage in a Tetra Pak carton in school. So with all this experience from all these years, what have we come up with? What is important in answering the question how? What is important to make sure these programs are sustainable? That milk is a very nutritious product as it is. Without any further fortification. And obviously children need not just to be relieved of hunger, they also need nutrition in school. So food safety and nutrition, extremely important. Legislation is a way, of course, to secure that programs continue over time. and that that budgets are allocated on a regular basis. Data to measure impact, this is something we always recommend and try to encourage and work with partners on. It's difficult to justify budgets and to protect programs if there is no impact. We heard a few examples from Sweden, and this is extremely important for all organizations working with school feeding to make sure that the intended impact also happens. Public funding, this is also something that we see is, of course, in the long run, the most sustainable way of running school milk programs. There are, of course, times when donor funding and other support is needed. And there are, of course, still a lot of cases where parents have to pay for the food in school. But over time, for this to be something that reaches all, especially those who need it the most, of course, public funding is a requirement. Community engagement, we have heard about that. And in our case, we collection and recycling, of course, referring to the fact that we create waste with our cartons. But there are a lot of good ways of managing this and to recycle it and make other good products from those materials. One of the many tools and the contributions that we offer, and this is, we don't charge for this, this is one of many ways that we contribute, is that we've put together this handbook based on a lot of the technical assistance experiences we have over the years. And this is available on our website. I have a few copies here. It covers a lot, of course, with some focus on using our packages in school meals, but also a lot of generic information that it is important. How to manage programs in a good way, measuring impact, as I mentioned, how to prepare the schools who have not done this before, how you manage the product. In our case, it's cartons full of a sensitive food, how these products are consumed in the classrooms, how you monitor, and also, of course, take care of the waste that it creates. We don't do this in isolation. We work, of course, with partners, and I won't go into details here, but obviously, of course, with the local authorities, the governments that are running these programs, in some cases with World Food Programme and other development organizations. And we've, from our perspective, Food for Development, we of course need to find formal and informal partners in a number of ways. Also for advocacy and networking, and I guess this is what we do here today. And finally, so what is our model that we promote? Okay, we are packaging solutions company. The technology that made Tetra Pak big in the world is the aseptic technology, which means that sensitive foods such as milk can be stored and transported without cooling and has a very long shelf life. In Sweden, of course, we don't have an issue with providing food in schools. We have kitchens, we have cooling chains, we have very high standards. But in many countries where there are no school kitchens, where there are no canteens or dining rooms, and refrigeration is not available, then, of course, an aseptic product could be a very practical and safe way to provide children with food. Portion packages is also a very good way to control nutrition and portion size, and very hygienic. The package itself is not just protecting the food, you can also use it for communicating with children. And I don't know if you look at the milk cartons or the filmjölk cartons from Arla, they have usually something on the panel there, some fun and games, and they are priding themselves of changing this every month, and there are new things coming out. So a panel on a pack can really be a very important communication tool. It could be about the need to brush your teeth or exercise, or where does the food come from, or I mean, there is no limit on what you can use that for. Our model also includes the technical assistance in implementation on requirement, of course. We are not forcing ourselves onto anyone, but if needed, we are quite happy to be there. And the value chain approach. This, of course, food is produced by farmers. It has to be processed and packed and then consumed. So we try to look at the whole value chain to make programs sustainable. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Very interesting. And the last panel member, Marie Duling from the World Food Programme. So, okay.
See if I can make this work. So my name is Marie Durling. I work with advocacy and communications in the World Food Programme in the nutrition division. So like Nancy, I'm excited about nutrition. So I will zoom in a little bit on the nutrition aspect of school meals, but also broaden out a little bit to look at kind of how to support children's nutrition from conception throughout childhood to adolescence, and where school feeding fits into that mix. And starting off, I couldn't resist with this, showing this. We found my grandfather's diary when we were cleaning out my grandparents' house, and we found a diary entry from 1941 when my grandfather was 12. And he grew up, just to give a picture, almost 100 years ago. He was born with 11 siblings in a very poor household. I mean, at the time, Sweden was a poor country mostly. And he definitely knew hunger. It's him on the horse right there, youngest of the siblings. And he was writing an entry in his diary about, tomorrow we will get school meals in school. And they would get it Monday to Saturday. He was writing his weight, which was 40 kilos. He was hoping that with the school meals that he would actually gain weight. Plus he was like so excited about getting oat porridge, fish and cabbage stew, and all these other delicious dishes that they were getting. But for him, that really mattered because he was from a household that was food insecure some of the time. And that's a reality, of course, that we see in the world in many countries today. And I won't go into all the stats because we have already heard a lot of that kind of landscape today. But what I will say is that we see a situation today where hunger, unfortunately, is not reducing the way we would like it to see to make progress towards sustainable development goals, but we're rather seeing very worrying trends, especially in some of the world's conflict zones and fragile settings, where we see acute levels of extreme lack of food and increased risk of acute malnutrition and death. And that has more than doubled in 2024. So while we're seeing globally that actually every country in the world sees one or many forms of malnutrition, including Sweden, although in Sweden might be more on the overweight, obesity side, or maybe nutrition deficiencies, we see, of course, a greater burden in low-income countries, and especially in those settings where we see fragile conflict-affected settings, humanitarian settings. So that's, of course, where we in the World Food Programme focus our work the most. And just to give you a little bit of a zoom in on the kind of hotspots for nutrition, where we do the majority of our nutrition programming. You recognize some of these places, you see them in the news, but that's of course where the burden is extremely high, which especially impacts children. And of course, while 1 in 3 people globally cannot afford a healthy diet, this is especially critical in those fragile settings. So the drivers of that, of course, poverty, ineffective food systems, recurring emergencies, shocks and crises, all of these different drivers that can contribute, where people cannot get the food they need to survive and to be healthy. All right. So I want to take a step back a little bit to talk about early childhood nutrition and how that links to the situation later on. And Nancy already elegantly highlighted that to kind of even get to the point where children are in school and learn, the foundation needs to be right from the start. So the majority of our nutrition programs focus on the first 1,000 days, which is from conception to age 2. And that is where the foundation is laid for brain development, for physical development, for lifelong health. And if you don't get nutrition right in that time period, you have the risk of irreversible negative impact on that child's development. So of course, then if you have a stunted brain, a stunted child in early childhood, when they get to school, they have less capacity to learn and really kind of develop to their full potential. Not to mention, of course, the risk to, I mean, almost half of all child deaths globally of children under 5 are caused by malnutrition in different forms. So it's really like an acute problem, but it's also a long-term problem. So those first 2,000 days is really kind of where the foundation needs to be laid for to be able to then build on and continue, hopefully, support children's nutrition later on in life. So while you have that first window, you then have to kind of continue build on that as children grow. So schools, of course, is then a really important platform to support children's nutrition as they get older. And especially then adolescent years is particularly important because that can offer an opportunity for some catch-up growth and development. And also since we know, those of us who maybe have adolescents at home, that's a time of a lot of growth, a lot of development, lots are happening, and children and youth have additional nutritional needs during that time period, especially girls, of course, when it comes to iron and some of those things, which matters, of course, not only for their own development, but also for if they are going to have children one day, their nutritional status matters for the health of their child as well. So this, of course, is not only impacting children and their families, but it also has kind of bigger societal impact as well. So children's nutrition in that early time period in particular, you have seen in low and middle income countries that there can be up to 10% or estimated 10% loss of GDP from malnutrition, from healthcare costs, but also from lost productivity. So it's exactly that stunting early in life that can cause that. But the good news, of course, is that nutrition can be improved, and it's not rocket science. We know what to do, and it's actually quite relatively low cost as a development intervention, a humanitarian intervention, to really put children on a path to survive, to thrive, and develop to their full potential. And those stats, everyone who knows nutrition knows that very well, but there is well founded that every dollar invested in nutrition in that early time period can generate $16 in return on investment. So I will just touch a little bit on how WFP is supporting children and throughout childhood. So of course, the kind of at the core or the kind of majority of our direct nutrition work is focused in that early time period. So it's for pregnant and breastfeeding women and girls, and it's then from early, essentially from the baby is born until 2 years. But of course, we then have also additional support to household and families later on as well. So we do kind of direct delivery of services, of nutrition services, both to prevent and to address malnutrition for those who unfortunately do become malnourished. And we help them recover. Of course, working in partnership with UNICEF and with FAO and with other UN agencies and partners as well. We do focus the majority of our work in those countries that are low income, but also particularly those that are affected by shocks and crises. We also focus a lot on supporting those at a highest risk of malnutrition to have a healthier diet, which can be more complicated in context where maybe fresh food is not on the market so easily available, or where, of course, many people are poor, where systems aren't working. So finding kind of ways of supporting to strengthen national systems, but also support more resilient communities. But also then, of course, we work in school meals, supporting school meals programs. And the biggest part of that is actually technical support and policy support to governments to support governments to set up sustainable school meals programs. But of course, also then providing school meals where necessary, especially in those fragile settings where maybe government capacity to provide those services are not sufficient. Am I running out of time?
Yes, but it has been very interesting.
So I will wrap up because actually Nancy covered some of what I was going to cover less. So let me just hammer home a few key points. So here is just a little bit of a sense of our reach, where the direct kind of support is a small part, but working with governments and supporting national systems is how we reach much broader and wider. And then I'd just like to highlight as well that we have a big ongoing piece of work, which is to improve the nutritional adequacy of our operations, to be able to kind of reach further than what we do just with our kind of nutrition work. So like reform work to both improve the kind of composition of the food that we deliver in kind, but also finding other ways to kind of leverage, for example, through cash-based interventions for higher nutritional impact, and working with national social protection systems and school feeding programs. Finally, just to hammer home key points linking back to Nancy's presentation as well. Of course, we know that school meals can be such a really important platform for children's nutrition, and we've heard about that very elegantly today. But this is only if they're designed in the right way. If they're not designed in the right way and we provide like a snack bar to kids, I mean, yes, it serves a purpose, but we can achieve so much more if they're designed to really meet children's nutrient needs in that specific context. So that's where also nutritional guidelines can play such a big role. Nancy already outlined that very well, so I don't have to go into that. And this is also an ongoing piece of collaboration between our two agencies in terms of how countries can be supported to really ensure that nutrient is maximized. I will stop there. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for very interesting, and it is hard to interrupt you, and I could tell you that your story about your grandfather almost touched me into tears. It was a very, you put a very on an interesting spot.
It's easy to forget that Sweden was a poor country not so long ago.
Yes. So, and I think you can just stay here, and we will ask for the rest of the panel members. Maybe you should be around that table. And I hope you have some questions that you have prepared. I would like to take a chance to pose a question to Maria Nordlund. Helena Nordlund, sorry, from Matlöst, because what is going on in the school canteen? I know you have very interesting project going on when it comes to climate-friendly food and cereals. Could you just mention?
You mean the work with hidden ingredients?
Yes.
Okay.
Because it is interesting when it comes to in this protein shift, also to take care of the minerals in cereals. So just short.
Matlöst is actually a unit that supports companies, food companies, small and middle-sized food companies working with a sustainable approach. And we know that we talk a lot about the protein shift, and that, as I also mentioned, the aim to eat less animal food from animal origin. But then we have a problem that the nutrients are not available really in whole grain cereals and even in legumes. And especially the minerals is a problem. So we have been supporting a company that works with a processing method to make the nutrients in whole grain cereals available, especially the minerals, available to humans. And it's a huge difference from unprocessed cereals and these processed minerals. So that's an interesting.
This is the mineral shift.
Yeah, we have had a Vinnova financed project called the mineral shift, just compared with protein shift, because the protein in rich countries, protein is not a problem, but minerals might be for many people.
Thank you so much. Maybe we should mix with a question from the audience. Please go ahead. Yes?
So thank you all for your very rich presentations. I would like to continue to ask Helena. You have worked now for quite some time with your school feed and changed diets. So what is the result when you procure everything locally? Will the meals be more expensive, and what is the acceptance among the children?
Yeah, I can say that we have not succeeded yet to procure everything locally. Actually, quite a small part. We are working on that very much. We have succeeded well to procure organically produced food. We have around 70% organic food. Local food is often more expensive. But that is not the biggest problem. The biggest problem is how the food chain is organized, and to the distribution and all the logistics. Actually, the big systems, the global systems, functions much better than the local ones. And we are actually just now starting a project on procurement of local food, where both the diet unit will be working with the procurement processes and the contracts, and then the producers will work on their side to be able to answer the public procurement, because they aren't actually. So it's a tricky question, even in a country like Sweden, to get local food.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. There were one more question, I think. Please.
Thank you. My name is Maria Milivojevic. I work at the Ministry for Rural Affairs and Infrastructure. Thank you to the panelists and everybody else for very interesting presentations. I have two questions. One is about what we've heard from several of you, the collaboration with different partners and this kind of system approach. And I wanted to listen in from all of you how you work with academia and research to boost your work. That was one question. And the other question, if you could remove one obstacle, which one would it be in your work?
Yes, please.
I can start. Thank you for your question. It gets me thinking a lot. To answer the first question, in the specific example of School Food for Change, which is the EU project that I was speaking about, we have academia as specific project partners. So they're a very important role in actually monitoring the impact of the project, among other things. So we have academia monitoring the health impact of shifting the kind of menus in schools in the 12 different countries. And we also have researchers and scientists monitoring the shift, the climate impact of the menus and environmental impacts. So that's one way of working with them. But within the work of WWF Sweden, we always seek to work from a scientific basis, of course. So what we say or state as sustainable school meals is always grounded in science. And the other question, if I could remove one obstacle, I would say internationally, globally looking, the obstacle for more sustainable and enjoyable, tasteful school meals, I would say is the structures that we have traditionally implemented in logistically kind of serving school meals. So we have a great system here in Sweden where we offer school meals for free. There's also similar types of systems, although not tax-funded in other countries. But the obstacle is that it's a mission for the food service sector to serve school meals. But it's not a mission for the educational part of the schools to implement school meals and use school meals as a tool in education. And they seldom work together. There's not much collaboration between the different silos. So yeah, that's one thing I wish to remove.
I think, thank you so much. And I think both of you would like to give a reply on this.
Yeah, I could try to say a few things. When it comes to academia, for us, and I mentioned it in my remarks, the need for impact assessments to make sure that we know what is happening and the impact it has on children, on education, on agriculture, and whatever the focus is. And for us as a private company, it's extremely important to have objective studies and scientific quality. It's not enough that we do our own research here. We need to really collaborate with or make sure that governments or our partners engage qualified researchers to do this, so that this becomes objective and neutral, transparent, and high quality. We have to be able to trust these studies. And on the other one, remove one obstacle. Of course, there are many obstacles. One that comes to mind is, I think, the way we look at the cost of school feeding, because of course somebody has to pay for the food. Farmers don't produce for free. Our customers don't process and pack for free. But very often this is just seen as a short-term cost. It has to be allocated in a budget, and we don't look at it as the investment that it actually is, and that it reduces future costs in healthcare. And there were some numbers here from Marie's presentation on what it costs in reduced GDP, reduced lifetime incomes if you do not give children nutritious food in school. So we have to all help to make sure that all involved look at this as an investment rather than a cost.
Yeah, in the long time. Very, very interesting. And thank you. And Marie Dürling, you also wanted to give a reply on this, I think.
Yeah, I couldn't resist because such good questions. So of course, everything we do as WP in nutrition is based in evidence. And we have many different partnerships with academia, but we also have academics working in our nutrition division so that, to kind of take that to be applied. One example is our Fill the Nutrient Gap analysis or kind of tool that we use to support, I think at this point, more than 40 plus governments to kind of, through a comprehensive process, to help them identify what's the kind of main barriers for vulnerable populations to access nutritious food, and what's the gap remaining to be filled for them to have a nutritious diet, and what's the most cost-effective way of closing that nutrient gap, essentially. And then working with governments across sectors to kind of look at, okay, do we need to strengthen the social protection system? Do we need to, increase school meals? Do we need to, beef up something in the food system? Or what are the different kind of elements that are needed? On the second questions, I would say, if I can remove one barrier, it would be removing barriers to access nutritious foods in fragile settings. Maybe if I have to select, both it would be financial barriers, but also actual availability as well.
I think the question about barriers raised an interest. Helena,
I just want to shortly say that we have a lot of cooperation with universities, researchers, and students, and we welcome students to Södertälje. That was my short message.
This is something I will take home, really. Very good. Any more questions? Yes, please.
Yeah, there are a couple of questions from the online audience. I thought I can pick two. First one is not directed to anyone specific, and it says, how do school meals contribute to environmental protection and the fight against climate change? So maybe this is something that can be clarified a little bit. And then there's a specific question for Katarina saying, what are the cost implications of providing milk in Tetra Pak packaging?
Yes, Ulrika, you was...
Yeah, so let me start on that interesting question. I love this question. So for me, it's kind of obvious, but it's not for everyone. So starting off by just looking at what kind of foods do we actually procure to our school meals, or what kind of foods do we provide as the school meals? That's the source of maybe a sustainable or an unsustainable local, national, and global food system. I see school meals also as a very important norm setter. Can you say that? It's setting norms and new preferences. So we know that food habits and diets are often established early on in life. So if we get children, students, young people to actually like sustainable and nutritious foods from an early age, they are more likely, the probability rises that they will also continue to choose and have a preference for that kind of foods. So for me, that's the logic behind how they contribute.
Thank you. And Helena and then Katarina.
I completely agree to what Ulrika said, and I would like to say that our concept, Diet for a Green Planet, with the 5 criteria, is a very good tool to make it happen, to be short.
Yes, cost implication of serving milk in a Tetra Pak carton in schools. Yes, of course there is a cost. First of all, milk is not the cheapest food. Farmers need to be compensated for producing milk. And then we have the industry that collects, processes and packs the milk. I would say if you choose to have milk as a food in a school meals program, which is a good choice because it's very nutritious, then of course you have to make sure that that product is safe. There are other ways to pack milk than to pack it in a Tetra Pak carton, although we are present in most countries in the world with customers that can process and pack local milk. What we do as a company is, of course, to try to make those products as affordable as possible. We have a special price list if products go to schools or food aid. So we try to contribute in that way. Very often also our customers might have another price list when products are going to this kind of use, these kinds of consumers. We also have packaging formats that you might not use here in Sweden. We don't have them here, that are also cheaper than other formats. For example, I don't know if it's called, we call it Tetra Classic, that little pyramid shaped package. That's a very affordable carton. Is used in school milk in many countries, also in Europe, in Romania. We have it in Kenya, in many other countries. And there's an even sort of simpler one called Tetra Fino, which is basically a pouch, a carton pouch, still the same high quality, but slightly cheaper to produce. It's not such a fancy pack as we might buy in supermarkets in Sweden. So there are many ways we try to make products for schools affordable. But the fact is that milk is not cheap, and of course dairy factories need to be compensated for their work as well. But you also have to look at the necessity to process and pack, and if value chains are built up in this way, you also reduce food losses. That milk has to be cooled and processed and packed quite soon after it has been milked. So I understand the concern, but
thank you so much. And I think is there any more questions? Because we have to slowly terminate this seminar, and we have also the last closing remarks by Alexander Bong Bergström. But to be sure we don't leave out any important question, then if there is any more question in the audience, then and if you would like to add anything more, I think it was you complemented each other very well. It has been very interesting, and I think you have rewarded an applaud, really. Thank you so much. And we have two things. It is the concluding remarks, and also one important thing is that you should fill in an evaluation of this seminar. I think, Jenny, would you like to add some information regarding that? It will be important to...
Yes, so if you scan the QR code that you see on the screen now, we would be super happy to have your feedback on the survey. It's part of our follow-up of results and impact. So we would be very happy to have that. Thank you.
Thank you. And amazingly, even though we had a tight schedule, we are almost just in time. And so I would like to welcome Alexander Bong Bergström, that is the Secretary of the Swedish FAO Committee, the Ministry of Rural Affairs and Infrastructure. And you will just make a closing remark of this seminar.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So it's my honor and privilege to just provide some closing remarks for this session, and I would just like to begin, of course, with sending the most heartfelt thanks to all our speakers and panelists. It has been very much appreciated that you took time to be with us today, and also, of course, to all of you in the audience, both here in the room and online. Just to say a few words also about why we're doing this. So I'm representing the Swedish FAO committee in this. We're trying to celebrate World Food Day, and we have, as you've seen, we've had speakers here from government, from academia. We have our moderator, and from civil society, the private sector, and of course the UN system. And that's very much in line with our mission at the Swedish FAO committee. We're all about multi-stakeholdership and inclusiveness, which is why we have also a very broad membership within the committee, where we have our government agencies, we have civil society, private sector, and academia represented, because we think that all these perspectives are very valuable and important in all work related to FAO and FAO's mandate. So very much happy with that. And hopefully it has been very useful and interesting for you all to hear these different perspectives also in the same room and in the same context. I do also think when we were putting together the program along with SIANI and the Swedish Food Agency, I mean, school meals, it's how you approach the subject, it differs a lot from your context. I mean, obviously now we're here in Stockholm, but of course also online. But school meals it's a universal issue, and the challenges we face vary, I mean, greatly across the world. I mean, the challenges we face here may seem small in comparison to the very big challenges to actually at all being able to provide school meals in some context. But I do hope that you have had a chance to get a flavor of the different perspectives, and that you can see some links, and both in terms of possibilities and also challenges across different geographical contexts. And I certainly hope that you've had some food for thought for that, picking up on what the State Secretary said this morning as well. But I'll be brief. I think we've had a very full seminar and very packed. So again, just thank you to everybody. Thank you also very much to Ingela, our very competent moderator. Thank you very much. And again, thank you to the speakers and panelists and all of you. So I wish you a good rest of the day, and thanks again.